The Bank of England fights to save Britain's oldest merchant bank from collapse. Barings faces bankruptcy after an employee loses £400 million gambling on the Tokyo stock market.
It's one of history's biggest ever trading scandals. Losses of nearly $7 billion. And Jerome Kerviel is the rogue trader taking the flak.
Leeson mainly traded on futures on the Nikkei 225 index, 10-year government bonds in Japan, and the Euro-Yen futures. So when he got his position in Barings in Singapore, he created an error account called quintuple 8, and he made it for any small errors that traders might make during the day, which would then be reconciled that evening. But he further went on to remove these from the internal audit controls of the firm, so there would be no record of the error account whatsoever. His dual role allowed him to hide losses made on highly speculative bets. He would place offsetting trades before market end, and he'd move them from the securities and the Japanese accounts into the error account, unbeknownst to the high honchos in the company. With large losses incurred, Leeson started to delve into options in late 1993, and he implemented a doubling strategy on his bets, doubling down each time he made losses. On the 16th of February 1995, he placed a straddling bet on the Nikkei index, which proved catastrophic, as the following day the Kobe earthquake hit Japan, which caused the index to plummet multiple points and led to large losses in the bank to the tune of 800 million.
There was no warning. 180,000 buildings were destroyed. An urban area 20 kilometres long and 4 kilometres wide was totally wrecked.
Jerome Kerviel progressed from the back office of SocGen to a highly esteemed position as junior trader on the Delta One trading desk. His role was similar to that of Nick Leeson in that he had to arbitrage through using futures contracts on the exchanges. He was an expert in computing and thus had no difficulty whatsoever bypassing the computer system, Elliot, in the company. This meant he was able to alter trades on the system. He made profits of €1.5 billion, but only declared 55 million of it that year. This went undetected as the banks neglected gross positions and only took into account net exposures. His trading got increasingly wild because of this, and he entered €50 billion worth of futures contracts. He did this ironically to try and wipe out the 1.5 billion he had generated for the company, as he feared he could lose his job. The bank was finally alerted through a large margin payment received from his trades, which set off internal credit controls. And finally, in 2008, with the stock market plummeting, what was a 1.5 million profit turned into a $3 billion loss. And when the bank finally realised this, they tried to liquidate the position, and the losses stood at a final figure of €4.9 billion.
So among the main reasons that both banks did not detect the fraud over a long period of time were a lack of supervision and little to no attention given to initial alerts or warning signs. During the majority of his fraudulent trading at SocGen, Kerviel remained largely unsupervised, while his managers also ignored internal alerts. Leeson lacked supervision in a different perspective. With his appointment as head of trades at Barings, Leeson had the authority to approve all of his own trades without any questions asked. In both cases, no one questioned why there were unusually high profits made on such supposedly low-risk trading. An internal audit in 1994 outlined the extent to which Barings was exposed due to the dual nature of Leeson's positions. As Leeson was considered their star trader, they chose to ignore this, which ultimately leads us to the question: were the banks truly unaware of any illegal activity taking place among their top profit earners?
Addressing the problem of culpability in Barings' case, there can be argument made for both sides, but the largest reason for such a catastrophic loss can be pinned down to Barings' lack of attention and their complacency. A major warning sign comes about when we realise Leeson had full control over trading and the settlement support for the Singapore subsidiary. Leeson manufactured fictitious reports and after failing to fight the market, but Barings never removed him from a position in which they knew this was possible. Leeson requested additional funds, informing the bank that they were needed for client accounts. The problem arises when we realised there was no detailed information provided by Leeson for these accounts, and yet the head office of the bank made these payments with no further inquiry. A single trader was able to make huge profits on an arbitrage market while taking on no extra risk or exposure, and nothing seemed to be done. When it comes to SocGen and Kerviel, there is also blame that falls on both sides. Leeson was continuously trying to cover past losses, whereas Kerviel was acting on his own behalf in an attempt to make larger profits to increase his bonus. Kerviel should have sold a portfolio at the same time with very similar characteristics in an attempt to limit risk or loss, but such a portfolio did not exist, and Kerviel failed to do his job to exploit price discrepancies to make money. The bank also failed to apply a gross expenditure limit for Kerviel, along with not acting when signs of misconduct rose. Overall, most regulators will succumb to the fact that there is little a bank can do to halt or stop an individual trader with large motivation for conforming to their own beliefs about the market and attempting to beat it.
Gone down in history for the debts they have racked up, including Kweku Audoboli, who lost UBS Swiss Bank a staggering $2.3 billion in 2011, Yashu Hamanaka, who conducted rogue trading and fraud for more than a decade at Sumitomo Corporation, and John Rusnak, a trader in AIB's US subsidiary Allfirst Financial, who caused losses of $691 million in the mid-1990s. However, it took until 2002 for the true nature of the bank's exposure to be realised. So we can see similarities between these cases and Barings in Societe Generale. A lack of experience and authority over Rusnak was one of the main reasons for his rogue trading to spiral out of control. Rusnak used a number of strategies to disguise his losses, such as fabricated options contracts. Similar to Kerviel, by 2002 Rusnak was betting up to 3,000 times his limit of $2.5 million.
You know, the story is one of incompetence and negligence on a grand scale. I think every time you see financial scandal, be that rogue trading, be that global financial collapse, it's poor systems, poor controls and poor people. You know, I think it characterises absolutely everything that you see, everything that's wrong that happens in the marketplace. I think it's inevitable that it will happen again.